Hello, I'm Donald Leggett, and welcome to the latest London South East CEO interview. I'm joined today by Nick Clayton and Jeremy Bridglalsing, non-executive chairman and CEO at AIM-listed Trinity Exploration and Production. Trinity are the leading independent oil and gas business in Trinidad. Trinity has onshore and offshore assets on both the east and west coast of Trinidad, and it currently produces over 3,000 barrels of oil per day. It's well financed, it's holding $90 million in cash, and as well as significant near-term production opportunities, Trinity sees great potential for growth and exploration. Welcome, Jeremy.
Thanks, Donald. Thanks for having us.
Welcome, Nick. Thank you very much indeed for joining us today. I'm delighted to have you both.
I'm delighted to be here. Thank you.
And sadly, founder Bruce Dingable is no longer with us. It's just one of those terrible things, but the business which he and the team built certainly are. So, Jeremy, how would you describe Trinity today? What's your upsum for investors?
Yeah, thanks. You mentioned Bruce, and Bruce has been a friend and a colleague for a number of years to a number of people within Trinity. So his sudden, shocking passing certainly saddened everyone. But I think in the time that has unraveled until now, certainly the feedback on the ground is that everyone wants to see Bruce's vision and his legacy through. And I think the team is very uniformly gauged and geared up to do so. So where does that put Trinity and where are we now? We recently put our interims out to the market in mid-September, and Nick and I would have gone around to see a number of different investors and met with some existing investors, which was an interesting opportunity for Nick and I to get to know each other a bit better, but also to tell a story that is evolving and growing. And Trinity primarily is a cash generative business, Donald. We have been focusing on converting 1P reserves into cash for the last few years, growing production through the drill bits. We'd have drilled 14 wells over the course of 2018 to 2019 and taken production from around 2,500 barrels to 3,200 barrels. And now where we are around 3,000 barrels, going pretty well, generating good, strong operating cash flow and doing so with low operating break-evens as well. And low operating break-evens is a point that we stress on a consistent basis because it does quite a few things for us. It allows us to be resilient in the face of volatile oil prices. And if you look at the oil prices over the past few years, they've been very volatile. So having stability and being able to manage the business through that is important. But it also allows us when the oil price goes up, as it currently has been for the past few months, we can benefit from that. And you can see that our operating cash flow has grown nicely between 2020 to 2021. And it also allows us when we bring on new production to have a low cost business that allows you to leverage on the profitability of the production. So
am I right in thinking that your cost per barrel is something around the 17, 18 dollars per barrel? Is it?
It's 17 to 18 on the East Coast offshore, which is our most expensive operating cost, and on land, which is our cheapest, we're actually at $12 per barrel. And the break even for the company is in the vicinity of $27. So quite low, and it's a key metric that we run the business by.
So it makes you very profitable at the moment then?
It certainly is from an operating cash flow perspective. And as we'll get later on to this interview, that cash, we're utilizing that cash to try and grow the business for the benefit of our shareholders.
Which takes us very nicely, Jeremy, it takes us very nicely to the main growth opportunities. So where are those onshore and offshore? As you're throwing off cash, where are you going to be spending that cash?
Well, I'll perhaps go through this in maturity of the opportunities. And the most mature opportunity that we have at the moment is the Galileo opportunity on the East Coast, which we can delve a little bit deeper into later on. But that is an opportunity there to go into the Galileo anticline, which has produced 30 million barrels of oil already over its life since the late 1970s to present. And we are looking to go a little bit northeast of where that field is and do a similar sort of development, but in a modern new way. And to do that, we will be trying to farm down that asset and get a partner on board to share the risk and reward there. On the onshore assets, which have been our prime area and our cash generative assets for a very long time, we purchased the onshore 3D seismic survey, 2 cutouts of that very recently, as in February of this year. And that is allowing us now to take a more modern approach to illuminating the geology within that area. And we're learning quite a few things. And that, as it matures, will help us to do a number of different things. First of all, it will help us increase the economic return of putting the drill bit into the ground. So we currently drill traditional low-angle wells, what we are hoping to do when we understand the geology better is to drill high angle wells or even horizontal wells, which increase the surface area access of the wellbore with the reservoir. And that should increase the recoverability, the production of the wells. And we're hoping that will be a step change for our onshore production. We drilled one of those in 2019, and that was successful. Our plan with this 3D seismic is to return to drilling in Q1 of 2022 and continue to test that hypothesis, and hopefully it's successful. And that will become the mainstay of how we drill going forward. In addition to that, the seismic is allowing us to see network connectivity. So we are seeing opportunities where we can study enhanced oil recovery. And as a reminder, the areas in which we produce in the onshore have been producing for near on 100 years, but the recovery factors are between 12 to 20%, so quite low. So there is the opportunity to go after meaningful production gains through enhanced oil recovery. So we are looking at those. And even within all of that, deeper below this very prolific area, we are seeing anomalies, which the teams are looking at whether we should be doing appraisal and exploration drilling. So some exciting opportunities in Galileo and onshore. And coming in the background of that are the West Coast assets, our Point Lego asset and our Brighton asset, where we have some infill opportunities and some appraisal opportunities as well.
So much to run at, so much to go for. Okay, let me bring you back to Galeota. You're farming out Galeota. So what is it? And what value would you place on Galeota after recent changes? And why are you bringing a partner in to develop that license? Why do you need a partner?
Thanks, Donald. Galeota is on the east coast of Trinidad. It's near to shore. It's about 11 kilometers off the coastline. It is in between 60 to 80 feet of water, so quite shallow water, and it's an area that divers can operate. The field was discovered in the late 1960s and brought on into production in the late 70s. And it's produced very well over that period of time. It peaked at 7,000 barrels. In 2013, Trinity went into the field just 1.2 kilometers northeast of the existing production facility. And we drilled an exploration well, and that well was successful. It discovered 186 million barrels of oil in place across 6 different reservoirs that it intersected. On the back of that, we put together a field development plan, and that field development plan looks at recovering in or around 20 million barrels with peak production of around 4,000 barrels for that development. The development itself is going to be something that's quite modern. It will be electrified from shore, which is something that we're seeing that the Oil and Gas Authority in the North Sea is striving towards. We are trying to lead the way in Trinidad with doing that, so it will reduce the carbon intensity of what will be a normally unmanned installation. We'll also be putting in new export routes, which will allow us to replumb the existing facilities and extend the life of those that facility. So when that comes on, we are hoping that we can take that forward into the other areas of Galeota that have a very high chance of appraisal success, which are northeast of the Project Echo and southwest of the Trinidad field. And the combined peak production from those two, we currently estimate, of course, subject to appraisal drilling, to be in or around 7,000 barrels of oil per day. So Galeota, when you look at the reserves that we can recover, the production, it's a material transformational change to the existing production range that we see Trinity currently having at 3,000 barrels.
Donald, just to interject there as well, you asked the question, why are we bringing in a partner? The project itself is sizable from a financing perspective, and the objective of Trinity is to sell enough of this project so that we don't have to come back to the market and resort to additional funding from shareholders. So that's the whole objective behind the strategy in farming down. That's the first point. And the second point is it doesn't really make sense for small companies to be taking 100% development risk on offshore projects. I would say they're the two principal reasons why we're contemplating bringing in a partner. And
how much, what percentage of the project do you expect or hope to farm in? 20%?
I'm envisaging it'll be more than that, but clearly we are at this stage, we're early on in the process. So I think we are flexible and want to see what comes from the market in terms of the level of interest in the project.
These are often, this is how long is a piece of string question.
Yeah.
How long is the timeline for the farm-in process?
Jeremy, I'll just, we
Sure,
expect to be somewhere between 6 and 9 months is a typical sort of time frame for a process of this kind. It could be sooner, but we're about to appoint a third-party advisor to run this process for us, and the advice that we're being given is that it will take somewhere between 6 and 9 months to find.
Fantastic. Let me stop you there, Nick, and back to you, Jeremy. What's the latest on the Northwest District block bid and the PS4 acquisition process? You guys are up to so much. Talk us through the latest there and what might these two add to the portfolio?
Yep, sure. Let me start with the PS4 acquisition, which we would have signed a sale and purchase agreement for in May of this year. And we're hoping that that will reach financial close imminently, as in the next couple of weeks or so. The PS4 license area actually sits right next to our WD56 and WD2 assets onshore, which are our most prolific onshore assets. And these assets, for example, the WD56 asset, there's around 1,100 barrels per day right now. And at its peak, when it was being drilled quite heavily, reached as high as 1,800 barrels of oil per day. The PS4 asset sits right next door to this. And whilst our WD56 asset has had scores of wells in it over the last 30 years, the PS4 asset has only had 6 wells. So we believe it represents significant running room in geology that we are very familiar with, in a surface environment that we are very familiar with. So we are hoping to get after this asset, which is doing 85 barrels of oil per day now, and be able to, through workovers, reactivations, recompletions, and then by the drill bits, increase the production on this block materially in a short space of time.
When might PS4 become yours, do you hope?
We're hoping in a matter of a couple of weeks. It is going through the process of receiving approvals from the Ministry of Energy, and based on our understanding there, that should be close to completion very soon.
Great. Let me take you to the supplemental petroleum tax. Now, you guys have been dealing with this for many years, but finally, it's a benefit for onshore producers. It's less onerous. So talk us through how it makes life easier for you to scale up operations in Trinidad, please, Jeremy.
Sure. It's something pretty recent, Donald. It was mentioned and put into enacted January 1st of this year, and it's meant to run for 2 years as an initial period. It didn't foresee COVID, certainly, and the impact that would have on people's ability to actually turn to the right with the drill bit. But what the government is looking for is activity. And activity, as COVID has become more manageable in Trinidad, has picked up, and the drill bit has been begun to be utilized by various operators. The next budget is going to be read on Monday, and we are hoping that this change in SPT, which has been really an increase in the threshold at which SPT kicks in from $50 to $75, continues for a period that is longer than 2 years. And we are hoping that the minister will consider this for more than the onshore and hopefully for the offshore. So we are eagerly awaiting the budget to be read on Monday and see what that means for us in terms of being able to grow the business through increased production.
But in financial terms, how much better off are you guys?
Significantly. I mean, the supplemental petroleum tax for the onshore, I would say by moving that up to $75, we would have saved in the vicinity of $2 to $3 million US for half one only, because typically our annual liability at these sorts of prices would be in the vicinity of maybe $6 to $7 million per annum. So it's quite significant in being able to keep cash on the balance sheet and return cash through production. Okay,
you mentioned a growing focus on transition fuels and renewables in Trinidad, and we all know that Trinidad is a gas island, and gas is a transition fuel. But renewables, that's all very interesting. What plans do you have for transition fuels and renewables?
Sure. And Donald, perhaps at the back of this, I can take you back to the NWD, which is quite exciting for us. But in terms of transition fuels, we have a small gas opportunity in one of the assets that we have in the middle of Trinidad called Tabakit. And we are looking at that as being a potential gas source for a micro LNG business. And the micro LNG really is a small LNG unit that can go right next to a well site and take gas from the orifice and then cool and compress that and turn it into liquefied natural gas and put it into ISO containers that can be trucked to any destination that requires that sort of fuel. And certainly within the Caribbean, in the Barbados country, in St. Lucia, in Grenada, these are areas that are using a lot of fuel oil and diesel. And we see that there may be an opportunity to present them with a cheaper, cleaner fuel source. So that's an area that we're looking at. The gas source has been a bit of a challenge because in Trinidad, gas is now scarce, whereas a few years ago it was abundant. So we are looking to find our own gas source right now through Tabakit, and once that moves forward, we can perhaps take the transition fuels forward. On the renewables end, I mentioned that the Project Echo platform will be powered from shore and plugged into the grid. Where we operate on the Galileo Isthmus, we see that there's an opportunity, perhaps start up a renewables power plant that will utilize initially solar power, and then depending on the wind feasibility studies that we do, perhaps wind power as well, to generate green electrons and send these offshore, which again would put us at the leading edge of oil and gas development within Trinidad and perhaps even wider.
Okay, absolutely fascinating. Right, let's thank you, Jeremy, and move over to you, Nick.
Hi.
Hi. I see you've appointed Derek Hudson to an already really experienced board. So what do you think Derek adds? What does he bring?
Well, we've been courting Derek for the past 2 years. And I think Derek's appointment to the board of Trinity will raise a few eyebrows locally. It's a very, very significant appointment. He has huge experience in the oil and gas industry and significant knowledge of Trinidad, the country, the culture, and the decision makers within Trinidad. As you probably know, he headed up Shell in Trinidad and was responsible for delivering some fairly significant projects. And that project delivery experience will be really important for us and for the board. But to say he's incredibly well connected is a bit of an understatement. I think he's going to be extremely important in helping us to navigate through the political situation in Trinidad and help us as Trinity shape our story in the minds of the key decision makers in the country. So it's a very significant appointment.
It's a coup.
It is a coup. I would argue it is a coup.
I'd agree with you. I think it's a coup.
So we're very, very excited, and Jeremy and I have already had a number of interactions with him, and already there's significant sort of value that I can see coming from that relationship.
Yes, no, it's terrific. It's also an understatement, to be fair, to say that you've got a lot going on commercially. Is this solid flow of positive news? Is it something which you hope might result in a share re-rating? I mean, these are the most nebulous of things, re-ratings of shares. Yeah. Well, everyone says that their shares are either, well, no one ever says that they're too expensive, but everyone thinks their shares are too cheap. I'm presuming you're similar, so.
Well, I think rather than sort of rely on the hope of a re-rating, I would say that as a board, we're very confident that we will see a re-rating. As you say, there is a lot going on, and Jeremy has already alluded to a number of the key initiatives, but the onshore seismic's important because that's the trigger for us to get back to drilling, and drilling typically is something that gets investors excited, particularly when you, as a company like us now, changing the focus of our drilling to high angle wells, where basically the economics and the returns from those wells are significantly better than a traditional vertical well. So that's important. The seismic's important. We've been hanging off for a while just so that we can order our opportunities and rank our opportunities before we get after it. But it won't be too long, and I'm expecting, whether it's in the fourth quarter, but most likely the first quarter of next year, we'll be starting drilling again, and people can start seeing the fruits of our labours. The PS4 thing, acquisition, really important, and Jeremy's alluded to that. I think probably one of the more important things is developing our relationship with Cairn. As you're aware, Cairn is working with us on 2 major bids in Trinidad at the moment, Jubilee and NWD, which is something that Jeremy has mentioned. The Galileo to farm out is a way of demonstrating the value of some of our assets that maybe we sitting in the company feel are not quite recognized fully or anywhere near fully by the marketplace at the moment. So a lot going on, very exciting, And I think we expect rather than hope a re-rating, just to go to your question.
My final question, almost answered there already, to be honest. What would your investment summary be? Why should investors hold shares in Trinity?
Well, Trinity is a small company that is punching well above its weight. We have strong technical skills. We have a strong technical and country IP in Trinidad. We're very well connected. We're in a mature hydrocarbon province where there's lots of activity, whether it's major companies getting rid of assets, there are consolidation opportunities onshore, but there are multiple opportunities to scale our business for the benefit of shareholders. So we're going to be a very interesting ride over the next 12 months. And to get back to your previous question, we expect rather than hope for a re-rating of the shares.
Okay, thank you very much indeed for speaking to us today. That's Jeremy, that's Nick. It's been very interesting to hear the Trinity investment story. My goodness, that's a story and a half. If you're a Trinity investor, we have an active Trinity chat board on our LSE website. Head across there and tell us what you think. Please do follow us on Twitter. That's @London Southeast. That's our Twitter name. And to see more videos like this one, just Google London Southeast YouTube channel and subscribe to our video interviews. Thank you for watching and do continue to stay safe. Jeremy, Nick, thank you so much indeed.
Thank you, Donald.
Thank you, Donald.
For your time. Thank you.